What's up, guys? This is Mark, the president of Studio 346, and welcome to our November-ish devlog. We promise we know what month it is, but this one has been a bit of a challenging one, and we want to talk about why. The biggest piece that made this month a little difficult was that two of our key developers have been basically out of pocket the entire time. Unfortunate IRL things, whether they be house flooding and needing all the repair, or runs to the North Pole, have kept a couple of us away from the project in November and, well, quite frankly, the start of December. So we recognize that we're in mid-December here, but our standards haven't changed. We want to make sure that we take the time to get our updates that we give you guys right as we continue to work on the game at the internal pace that we can. And so if that means taking a little bit of time or taking a pause, we're going to do that. This one took a little extra time because our developers were not as available, but we still have some really cool things to show. So with that, what's been cooking in November? Well, a lot of different little fun things that I'm excited to show you guys about. First and foremost is something that I've been working on that takes a little bit of inspiration from the video game Factorio, and that's the alt mode UI. Everyone wants to see the pretty locomotives and rolling stock and railroad and the world that we're building as is. UI elements are key to gameplay, but you don't want to have to see them all the time. So when you press left alt just next to spacebar, all of a sudden you're going to get to learn a lot of things about the world around you. Specifically, what locomotives you have, what railroad they work for, same with the cars, what they're loaded with. Okay, it's a flat car, but it's loaded with crude oil because it's equipped with a tank. You get to see the road number, and then as well you get to see anywhere where things might need to happen. On the siding you can see that we have a loading zone represented by the box. Any car that touches that box is capable of unloading if it's got the right material. And you can see we got crude oil unloading, those cars are loaded with crude oil, so they'll unload. It's a really neat thing because where do you need to spot the car? Pow! At the press of a button, you can see where the loading zone is, and that'll tell you, hey, I'm in the box. If I'm in the box, I'm all set. This feature is early in its functionality, and I still want to add more and find ways to display it better because sometimes at certain angles there can be a lot of information displayed at once, but either way, you quickly toggle it, and the game looks as pretty as it did before. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what changes you might like to see and what other stuff you might like to see highlighted. Currently, I've just got rolling stock and loading zones set up, and we're imagining that we're going to do switches, signals, a whole manner of things in the near future. But it's definitely a nice quality of life thing to know, hey, whose railroad is that car that I'm hauling actually owned by? And it's kind of important to know if you're leasing someone's car, perhaps a rival company, and of course, more on that to come in the future. Now, before we talk about the next big feature, I want to talk about a bug fix, and it's one that has been annoying the absolute hell out of us, and one that was really important that we fixed, and finally we found a great fix for. And that is, for you eagle-eyed viewers, you'll notice, or perhaps you won't notice because it doesn't do it anymore, the flickering glass is gone. If you watch a lot of our previous videos, we always had an issue with the glass in Unreal wanting to flicker because we had a couple different pieces of glass there. So anytime you had a couple windows next to each other, that sort of thing, it would stutter around and not figure out what it wants to do, and it looked kind of bad. And it was always on the list, and we tried a bunch of stuff, and it was kind of a frustrating one. We finally got there, so now the cab glass is all happy. The eagle-eyed of you as well may have noticed that our signals kind of looked a little bit odd in the last block as well. And that's because with fixing the flickering, we actually broke the signal glass and didn't realize while filming. So here's what the lenses are supposed to look like on the semaphores. This was our little goof up from last vlog. By fixing the other problem, we removed the nice looking glass from the lenses of the semaphore itself, and now you can see the three distinct colors as it sits there regardless of what's lit up. But another comment that was brought up, not just about the lenses specifically, was for colorblind accessibility mode. And it turned out that was really easy to do. And so Jake did a great job of setting up a way to make the lenses colorable individually on your own machine. So if you want to have any kind of color for the lenses, you can. Here's an example of a semaphore that's got some colorblind support set up. I just picked some random colors, set them to whatever I want. Just that simple. So if you want red to be kind of a yellowy orange, you want yellow to be kind of a purpley situation, and then for green to be blue, be our guest. If that's what looks best on your machine, if that's what works best for the way that you can see, it'll be totally user selectable and customized only to your machine. So if you're playing multiplayer, you'll always see the aspects how you want them, but other folks will see it how they have them set. So it's just a mode that's client-side only. The next thing I want to talk about is another little project of mine that I've been working on that is a big pain point for me in many of the games that I've played in my life as a train enthusiast. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to put our engine away for the night. We have arrived here at the High Desert map, one of our demo levels here, where we want to bring the engine in to the division point and talk about all the fun stuff that's going on over there. So let's get that done. But first, we need to make sure our train is secured before we disappear here. So we'll tie the handbrake, and I saw a comment a while back, someone saying, are the handbrakes all 0 to 100? No, you can set them wherever you want, which is great if you're running without air, but we're running with air today, and so I usually just totally bang them on all the way because they're essentially a parking brake. So that's the purpose. All right, we'll make sure we close off our angle cock there, pull the cut lever, and let's get this engine into the shop here. Couple quick blips on the throttle. Did I forget to untie the tender brake? Yes, I did. It's fine. There we go. And she wanders away and starts heading towards the roundhouse here. For those of you who are whistle fans, that is the Ashton 3 chime. Very, very pretty, and we're happy to have it represented in game here. Now, we don't need to be going too quick because we're running up to a turntable and a roundhouse here. So if we fly over there with our fly cam, this is what we want to talk about next. The roundhouse and the turntable. The turntable's been one of my projects, and as I was talking about a pain point, it'd be the turntable. Every video game turntable annoys the crap out of me, but this one is pretty sweet. I'm quite the fan. And good. Dunk. There it is. Alright, so we'll get spotted on the turntable, and then I'll explain how it works, because I'm really honestly proud of it, and it was the most annoying, stupid case of edge cases I've ever experienced to get implemented. Just a fun challenge. You think it's simple, and then it just really isn't. And there's so much in software that seems to behave that way, but that's the way it is. Alright, we'll dump the air, get that lapped, so we're spotted nicely on the table. And now we'll talk about how the table works. This is an Armstrong table. So you click on one of the arms. It says align arm A if you hover over that one. If we go to the other side, we hover over the other arm, align arm B. So if I click this arm, and then I click a track, when it says align to track, and it lines that arm to that track. Just that easy. There's no button, there's no holding, there's no pushing, there's no stupid. It's just simple and easy. 2 clicks, you get the end of the table you want aligned where you want it, and it just works. You don't have to worry, did I get it close enough to that track? Oh, I'm not entirely sure. It just works. So we'll go into the stall over here. So we align the other side, even though it was closer for this arm to go, we're gonna back in because our smoke jacks are on the front of this roundhouse. And we'll back in, get the engine tucked away, grab another engine, and we'll get out of here. So we get up there, bang, it nice and slowly locks in. You hear the sound to confirm. We're now aligned into the shop. Now we'll open up the roundhouse doors, and this roundhouse model is just exquisite. You might recognize it from our trailer, but if you did, you're right, but also not right. This is a model of the Pacific Coast Railway's San Luis Obispo Roundhouse, built in 1882 originally and modernized later. And this roundhouse is entirely redone from what we showed in the trailer. Original trailer version was just a simple building with way fewer details, and this version is quite cool, and its functionality is quite cool. It's entirely modular, and we're going to show a couple other variants here in just a moment, but you can choose the number of stalls you want, including up to a complete circle, though that's entirely fictitious for narrow gauge. You can pick where you want the smoke jacks. You can pick whether or not you want ventilation on the top or not. And the smoke is going to respond how you'd hope it would as well. On the interior of the roundhouse, we still have more work to go. The blacksmith shop and the machine shop, we've got more tools in progress and items to ply in. But for now, though a little sparse, it does really feel like a real roundhouse. It's beautiful in the way it is, and is very reminiscent of being in the interior of a shop like East Broadtop's shop, where they keep the space around the locomotives clean. Every roundhouse is a little different. We have inspection pits that, yes, you can go down in and enjoy, and again, it's totally customizable. Do you want to run through stall for another entry? Go back to a machine shop, perhaps. More to come on that and the purpose of that. Yeah. Do you want doors or no doors? Depending on the era, this roundhouse had a lack of doors or it had doors. So if you want the doors and the appearance and being able to shut everything up nice at bedtime, you can. If you don't have to. So it was a lot of work to get this all put together and set up. And one of my favorite silly details is that roundhouse doors are almost silent. We tested very different varieties, and Daniel Gollery, one of our models, talked about one of the doors that he's dealt with in a roundhouse that hadn't been touched in, something like 70 years was still silent, despite how heavy and big they are, except for when you slam them closed. So you get the sound of the door closing, and that's it, which is kind of interesting and a fun, nuanced thing. You simply place the roundhouse, you choose the number of stalls you want, and it automatically will link to the turntable. And the turntable is customizable for any number of tracks, so any roundhouse is going to work. So all of that was quite a lot of a challenge to get done programmatically, but we're very happy with it. With that, let's get the 12 backed into the shop here, and we'll put it away. Couple quick flips on the throttle. Come on, sweetie. There we go. Easy now. Easy now. Roll her back into the shop. And let's see if I can spot it with no independent brakes. These 818Cs don't have them. We're sitting here under the smoke jack. We get smoke out. You can see the smoke responds to what kind of smoke it's supposed to be, whether it's a coal burner or an oil burner that's sitting there idling away nicely. And the locomotives are aware that they're in the roundhouse. So the smoke is going to do what you would expect it to do if you're not under the smoke jack. It piles up and spills out the ventilators, which is just... black lung inducing, but quite fun. So as we said, this roundhouse is totally modular, and that includes whether or not you want to use a turntable and how many stalls you want to have. Here's going to be a more common configuration for some of your smaller locations on the railroad. With only 2 stalls, and rather than mess with a turntable, you just use a switch. Just that simple. Switch ties in, that's great. You have the 2 stalls plus the blacksmith shop off to the side. You can also see that we still have the run through, and this time the smoke jacks are actually at the back. So you have the option of you want to nose the equipment in, nose in first, or if you want to back it in. Either way, it's going to work. You're going to be able to have the equipment parked the way you like it, no matter what roundhouse and what variety it is. It's totally modular. And this is a very small roundhouse and very fun. The prototype originally having something like 6 or 7 stalls. I don't recall off the top of my head. But there is other options too. If you've ever wanted to be entirely surrounded by roundhouse, and forgive me for not wanting to take the time to place all of the tracks, we're still working on an automatic track connection tool, you can have this. This was not something that actually was something that ever existed on 3-foot gauge as far as we're aware. But it was something that railroads did, and is the ultimate end game condition for some of you folks who want a really big shop facility. So yeah, here we have 36 stalls in a circle with this roundhouse. It's also got a fun note that we can see that the only way to enter is with a run-through stall. Again, we've got the doors off on this one. That's all selectable per stall. Do you want doors? Do you not want doors? Do you want the modern variety, the not modern variety? It's a whole pile of fun. One of the other fun customization tidbits is that you can choose whether or not you want to have a pit too. So if you want to have a pit, you can have a pit. If you want to have the track covered up, then you can have the track covered up. This is going to be the cheaper alternative, but it's going to limit what maintenance can be done to the locomotives while they're in the roundhouse. So you're going to have that little cost-benefit analysis to do for your own railroad. And more on locomotive maintenance and what else is going to fill up these roundhouses to come in the future. Well, our train's got to get out of town here, so we're going to get the replacement engine, the replacement crew, but I'll help hostel it for them. How's that sound? So click on the arm, click on the track, turntable's happy just like that. All right, let's get the 11 out onto the train. So kick off the brake on the tender, and we're an oil burner here. Get a little oil flowing, you can hear it. Okay, let's get her out of the shop. Just little blips. So this time I'd like to do a little bit of Patreon Q&A. We saw some questions that folks asked that we wanted addressed in the video. Question, is a drop-down box to set up predefined signal rules and aspects in the cards? And our answer is that we don't really plan for that at this time. We're really excited to have signals working and user placeable, but getting it a user-defined logic turns into an extreme amount of edge cases and tons of programming logic, which, as cool as it would be, is not really the purpose of the game. So we're going to keep things a little bit more on the simplified side. Another question related to signals. Are we getting battery wells and relay cabinets? And more signal-related infrastructure is going to be on the way and is going to be required in order to support having signals in general. So you're going to have bungalows, battery wells, cabinets, all those sorts of things depending on how big your setup is and all that. More to come on that as we get into track and structure placement things. Approach means the same as warning in European, and I don't speak European, but approach in this context means that the next signal is going to be at stop. So perhaps that means warning. Whatever it means to you, it means that you better be stopped by the time you get to the next signal. And another one from European logic. So correct me if this thought is wrong, but from your perspective, you'd expect a slightly different behavior of clicking the points, signal drops to danger, stop, and then the points realign, and then the signal goes to the corresponding proceed aspect. And that's not European at all. That is standard signal design when you're being governed by switches and switch machines in an interlocking. And we're bodging things a little bit here for the sake of multiplayer functionality. We don't have switch machines with contacts modeled yet or any of that sort of thing. And even in the mechanical interlocking that we're going to have, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So for automatic block signals, it's going to be a little fudged. For mechanical interlocking, it's going to get a little bit more specific in terms of that sort of safety-based logic. That also ties into the next question. Obvious question that's probably been asked a million times already. Will the signals be automatic only, or will there be an option to build interlocking towers and for players to take on the role of signalmen, a bit like what Railroader does with its CTC setup at Bryson? And when I hinted at mechanical interlocking, that's exactly what I meant. More location specific than a global situation like Railroader has, and it won't be required for players to operate, but if someone does desire to pull levers to throw signals and switches, they'll be able to. Centralized traffic control, CTC, is outside of scope, especially considering user-placed track, but individual interlockings will be able to be staffed by players if you so desire. We also have a couple of non-signal questions. The flanges feel oversized, or is it my standard gauge mind playing tricks on me? The flange profiles on the wheels match the original wheel profiles called out by the manufacturers. They probably don't look like an AAR standard wheel, and that's because they're not. And the last question for today, will the user's input into Hyacinth be smoothed a bit? Right now you do hear every now and then that it's stepped. And this has been one of the most frustrating, annoying, tedious things. It's a really fine balance between smoothing things out and removing playability. If you smooth too much, it doesn't feel like you want the whistle to feel as an engineer. If you don't smooth enough, you get more stepping, and it also varies quite significantly between when you're yanking on the cord itself and playing in the UI, because everything has to play together, so it gets a little nuanced there. And it's something that's been annoying me personally, and we've been looking into it and testing and trying new things, and we've yet to find a solution that we really like, but we're going to continue looking into it. We're so incredibly thankful for all the support we've received from patrons patrons and from those watching on YouTube. As always, we try to have these things out the calendar month after they go out on Patreon in terms of things on YouTube, though this one will probably come out the same month because of the time delay that we had. We're so thankful for the support and love that you guys have given us, and we couldn't do this without you guys. And we're very excited to share what comes as we continue to develop the game in 2025. And we would really love to hear, particularly from our patrons, what you would like to see us do perhaps differently in 2025. Is there any other kind of engagement you might be interested in to help supplement time between videos, or any other things you might want to see? Any feedback you have on the vlogs? We'd love to hear about that sort of stuff so that we can keep focused on the development of the game as we go throughout 2025. With that, this is going to be the last vlog this year. We recognize that it's coming out partially midway through December, and it is labeled as the November vlog, but as requested by some of the patrons, and for a little bit of our own sanity, we are going to be taking December off in terms of videos. And for our patrons, that does mean we're going to pause funding. We don't want to feel like we're trying to take anything from anyone and not give anything back. And so as such, there's no video coming for patrons in December, and as well, you're not going to be charged for it. So we'll have a video out in January, and we are really excited about that video too. Honestly, one of the features we had hoped to show today wasn't quite ready, and was part of the reason why we delayed a little bit, and it's unfortunate that it needs a little bit more work, but it's going to be really cool, and you're going to love to see it next month. We hope you guys understand, and we very much appreciate your support as always. And as it is the season, we want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season and hope that you enjoy the time with those around you. As always, thank you so much for watching.